You're still watching Seasonal Impressions, but we're not still watching Fairy Gone. Jesus fucking Christ. I wanted to be gone. I wanted to be ferried away on a ferry. What did you think? We watched like 7 minutes of this and skipped ahead to see the monsters.
It was pretty underwhelming in every category.
The visual direction of this show is fucking abysmal. Like, shot for shot, the compositions are bad, the editing, like the transitions between shots are confusing.
Mm-hmm.
The first like 5 minutes are just like cutting between just seemingly random scenes. Like, we have a narrator explaining to us like the broad idea of what's going on, but we're just like watching random moments with characters we don't know anything about, scenes that aren't interesting in and of themselves. It's hard to tell what's important or what's really like what even the fuck is happening. There's just lots of awkward animation, and the characters don't look like they belong on the backgrounds, and the backgrounds look terrible. The character designs are okay, I guess, but they're not really drawn well. I mean, like, we're paused on a frame that's like...
It's grotesque, to say the
like,
least.
what is this frame? What's wrong with her face? Then the monsters show up, and they're CGI, bad frame rate. The fight choreography is dick. Like, they're currently, like, having a sword fight, and it's just, like, back and forth on a 2-dimensional plane, swing 3 times, have some dialogue, swing 3 more times. It's really bad.
Yeah, you forgot to mention one of the worst OPs.
Well, I just didn't even want to bother with it, because, like, the visuals of the OP were, like, abysmal. Yeah. And I was right away like, well, this is not putting your best foot forward, or is it? You know, is this the best foot that you had to stand on with this? There's nothing good about this show. No. It's pretty fucking painful. And I think that it's very obvious to me that the only reason that this has as many viewers as it does, because it's on a lot of Mal lists, but it has a very low score. And obviously that's because it has a cast of all, like, characters in black trench coats. Like, it's got that kind of gothy... It looks kind of like Witch Hunter Robin or something. Like, I immediately understand why people would be drawn to this, but I think everybody who watched it probably came away like, what the fuck was that? Like, that is not what I was hoping this would be based on the picture. Yeah. This is some weak-ass shit. I'm honestly shocked that PA Works made this. Like, I don't think they've had a show with visuals this bad ever. This is like an original, right?
Yeah, it's an original from PA Works. Kind of was hoping this would be interesting. I saw the monster designs and I was like hype a little bit.
The monster designs look kind of okay on paper in 2D, but when they're in 3D, it's a visual clusterfuck.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping they'd be like transforming into the monsters too, and then when it was just like...
They just kind of summoned them or something.
Yeah, and it was pretty underwhelming.
I mean, I remember looking at the monster designs and going, these monsters, like, before we watched the show, going, these monsters look cool. I'm sure they're going to be in CG. And, yeah, I mean...
Lo and behold.
Yeah, this is miserable, but I think everybody probably already feels that way. I don't think anybody's going to come away from this one being like, wow, I'm excited about Fairy Gone. Like, no. Alrighty, well, last night before we passed out, we watched 2 episodes of Hitoribocchi something. It's not on screen, so I don't remember the full title. And it was alright. What did you think of the Hitoribocchi show?
It was fun. The second episode, I kind of lost me a little bit because I couldn't tell if we were in a flashback or what the fuck was really going on, but it still was funny.
We were in a flashback for a lot of it.
Yeah, but it was not...
The telegraph was... I think I had missed the telegraph too, and I don't know if there was one or like if that was just the one moment I had kind of blanked on, but I do remember having a moment where I was like...
It was weird for them to be flashing back because it still seems like they're very early in the school year, but it was basically to introduce another character and have her kind of like come into the mix of their friendship.
Well, it was a flashback to like the day before.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it's fine.
The joke was sort of that the girl was she was trying to explain to her how she had pissed off this other girl, but ended up telling her the entire day's events because she doesn't actually know why she had pissed off the other girl, when the reality was that it had been what she had said just 5 seconds before the end.
I really like all the friend characters. They're fun.
The introduction of straight-haired girl
Ponytail.
made the show for me.
The vice president.
I was
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, okay. I was very teetering up until this point because, like, at the start, this show, the phrasing I had in my head was that this show is a Matryoshka doll of retardation. It's layers and layers of dipshit all the way down. The mere conceit of the show is retarded. That her friend tells her, you have to go befriend everyone in class or else I'm not going to be friends with you. It's a stupid premise, but, like, not stupid as in a bad idea for a show. Just stupid as in everyone participating in the plot has to be stupid for it to work. And every single step from there is, like, this girl is just incorrigibly stupid.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she has a journal with all the different, like, plans that she has to get out of basically the deal that she made, and the first one is to abolish middle school.
Yeah, which how was she going to make this
and she's
possible?
like, oh, I guess that one didn't work.
Yeah,
like,
and then
no shit, sure.
Plan number 2 is just to be in a class with no classmates, which does not work out. So, like, each of these, it's like, I appreciate what's funny about it, but, like, when the comedy of the show is just, this character is really stupid, and her assumptions have no basis in reality, it makes me think, like, well, what the hell is the point, kind of? Like, I didn't individually find these jokes to be, like, uproariously funny. They're just kind of like, oh, ha, But then when they introduce the blonde-haired girl, we finally have a voice of reason. Like, there's a character who is not operating on just being stupid and who can kind of corral the girl a little bit, and that made it a little bit easier to accept as the episode went on. And then when we get to episode 2, I just found Vice President to be, like, a thoroughly entertaining character, because the very first thing she does, she hands a handkerchief to Hitoribocchi, and she blows her nose with it, and the girl makes, like, a disgusted face, but then when she hands it back, she's all smiles, and I immediately said, what a fake bitch, out loud. And then, like a few minutes, like, later in the episode, when, the blonde girl meets her, she says the exact same thing, like, that's her first impression, is, what a fake bitch. But it turns out that she's not so much a fake bitch as just a really, like, unfortunate, kind of clumsy girl who is fake to hide the fact that she's pathetic. So it's not that she's, like, fake to be mean to people or to, like, to present... She is trying to present herself as better than she is, but it's because she is, like, really pathetic. And that made it funny to me. She seems like a fun character. Hitoribocchi, I mean, her name is literally all alone. That is what the word Hitoribocchi means, is all by myself. So, like, right from the start, we're on, like, a cartoonish level. I mean, this is a cartoon, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah.
It's, like, beyond the impossible levels of ridiculous. You and I were saying how we've both kind of been this character, but also had this character around us. How do you feel about that aspect of it? Like, what do you think of her as a character?
I think it's a fun situation to make light of, and is an interesting scenario to kind of introduce new characters. I think it's kind of endearing, like, even though she is hopeless, at least she's adorable, you know, and a lot of fun hijinks come from it. It's, like, some of the things that she does in the first episode were, like, mega relatable. Like, there was the girl in front of her that she becomes friends with drops her eraser on the ground, and she, like, goes down to put it on her desk. And I've been in that situation where, like, oh, I don't know if this person thinks I'm gonna be bothering them. This is weird. And, like, even though I, like, went down to get the eraser, like, changed my mind. Like, maybe not.
I've kind of been there, too.
And then everybody around me's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, let's call a spade because, you know I'm not going to get through this whole video without using the word autism. But,
Yeah. I mean, it's anime.
Well, and here's the thing, and this it took me a minute to decide how I felt about this aspect, because when you have a show about a character whose personality is that they are socially inept and awkward and they don't know how to talk to people, it puts you in kind of a weird position, because if you want to portray that realistically, you have to go on having this character never fucking talk to anybody, which is hard to make a show like that. Like, Welcome to the NHK is perhaps the best example, and a lot of people who, I don't know, maybe didn't complete the show or at least haven't read the book will get mad at the show because they'll say, like, oh, this guy is a shut-in hikikomori, and this cute girl just shows up in his life and decides to help fix his life. Well, if you actually watch the show, you'll realize that that doesn't go anywhere, that, like, that doesn't work. Her showing up in his life doesn't help him at all. He constantly regresses. He's constantly going back into his shell and making the same mistakes.
Yeah, and it's way more of a realistic portrayal, because if it were that easy, then anybody could get over it. In the anime, they it's a little bit stretched, because in order to create, 24 episodes worth of scenarios, they do have him kind of stumble into interactions with people for them to go wrong. But, like, in the original novel, basically the point is that even when there's people reaching out to him, he still never quite fixes himself. And, like, the one guy who he's friends with is just some otaku who is also a loner, and they come up with all these crazy schemes to try to get out of it. But, like, in the end, the only thing that causes him to move at all is, like, necessity. And even then, it doesn't really cure the problem, So in a show like this, immediately it's unrealistic to the portrayal of this type of character for them to easily make friends in the first episode, But I do think that what I liked the most about this show is that its advice for making friends is legit. Even if everything else in the show is stupid and operates on the basis of idiocy, like, the way she actually goes about making friends is a way that would work in real life. And I guess it kind of works for me because she doesn't really do it out of her own volition. It's like people tell her this is what to do, and she does that. And there is some suggestion that, the foothold of that friendship could be fragile because she's way too awkward to upkeep the friendship. But, like, when that becomes apparent to Blonde-Haired Girl in episode 2, you get the feeling that she's like, okay, I understand that I have to give a lot in order to make this work. Like, I have to really accept that this girl is fucking stupid, But, like, for instance, the piece of advice her friend had gave her is, like, the first step to making friends is to start liking the person. And I'm like, that's perfect, because one of the difficulties that you and I have in making friends is not liking people. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that was always how I felt.
Yeah, like, well, I do.
I don't know, always growing up, I really admired and liked everybody around me, and I think that alone made me fit in when I was, like, really young in elementary school, but, like, in middle school, it doesn't matter anymore. Because, like, you're in a new environment with kids you don't really know, and I was in a similar position to her when I was going into middle school. I just, like, I had a problem of just not taking an interest in anybody because I wasn't paying attention to what they were doing. It's, like, a big part of making friends is being observant, and, like, a very important thing to this show is, I've probably told you about the Ben Franklin effect. Yeah, you have.
Yeah, so to explain to the audience, if you haven't heard of it, Ben Franklin wrote about that when he wanted to make friends with somebody, particularly when he was trying to convert an enemy to a friend, he would have them do something for him. Because people have a natural desire to be useful to each other, and that's why we form communities and work for each other. We work in service of other people. It's probably the best motivator for most people is to have something beyond themselves that they're working towards. So, for instance, he would have somebody who seemed to not like him, and he would ask that person if he could borrow a book that he knew they were interested in. And so they would loan him that book, and then he would read it and, like, talk to them about it, and it would spark a friendship. So you see an element of that in this show where she thinks that she doesn't want to be in anybody's way. She doesn't want to be a burden. And this is how a lot of shy people think, including myself. Like, the biggest problem I've had throughout my life, like being able to talk to new people, is I just assume nobody wants to hear from me. That if I talk to them, it will be a problem for them. They will, they'll be unhappy to have their day interrupted. But while that can be true, and sometimes you have to deal with that rejection, it's like, if you want to endear people to you, you have to give them the sense that they have something to offer you. That, like, you are interested in them specifically because of this unique aspect of them that could contribute to you. And so, that's how she ends up making these friends, is that she observes them, she takes an interest in what they're doing, asks them something about it, like recognizes some strength they have that could help her, whether she's really doing that fully cognizantly or not, Mm-hmm. So I think that part of the show is good. I'm like, hey, this might not be a realistic portrayal of a loner autist. It's somewhat realistic. I mean, I've met some kids who... That was the other thing we were talking about again. Both of us have been kind of a clinger on... Like, I know there are people who felt the way about me that blonde girl feels about this girl. Like, I've been that, like, cloyingly obnoxious, like, trying to vie for your attention because I don't have any friends, but you might have a lot of friends, So, like, you don't need someone like me around, but I need you around. So, like, I relate to that emotion, but I have also had kids like that who follow me around.
I would say I've had more experience with people clinging to me, and I
have more experience with that, for sure.
Yeah, because I've been in a similar position. I feel like, it's sort of my responsibility to help these people, and it's less of a problem. But, like, it always ends up being a problem if you don't have healthy boundaries between people.
Yeah, I mean, Hitoribocchi is an adorable anime girl, so she's not so difficult to deal with. She's just kind of silly and funny. But, like, if you have to deal with, like, real, severely autistic people who have no social skills and have not been taught anything, and you have to be the one to teach them anything that they're going to know, it's a big ask if you have anything else going on in your life, Not to knock any autistic people watching this. I mean, I think you guys probably have been around the kind of people I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Or have been and have recovered, possibly.
Everybody isn't the same.
No.
It's just sometimes if you feel really alone and helpless, you do cling to somebody. And, like, there's nothing wrong with it as long as you both set healthy boundaries and you can learn and grow on your own and move on to more people, because you can suffocate that person, and if that friendship ends, you're kind of like, I don't have any friends. Like... So, I didn't learn anything.
Yeah, so it's like a cutesy portrayal of something that in real life is a lot more difficult to live with. But
I think it's helpful and relatable and, deals with a serious kind of issue in a fun way with cute girls.
And the character designs are super adorable. Yes. Production values are nice. I like the color aesthetic of the show.
What studio was this?
It was C2C, who did Harukana Receive last year. And they did, like, a bunch of co-productions with Satellite, but, like, they don't seem to have done a lot of shit.
They make some cute girls.
They've been around for a long time, but they haven't really done much, so...
I like the gradient on the main girl's hair.
I really like the OP as well. There's a lot of, like, energetic animation and stuff in there. Lots of good timing.
You can really get a sense of all the girls' personalities just from the OP.
Yeah. The guy who directed it had done something else that I was like, Sasuga, that director. It was written by Juki Hanada, who, is good for comedic dialogue. I hope there's no drama in this show, because I don't want to deal with that. But, I think, the thing that excites me the most about the show, and the reason that I'd want to watch more of it, is that if they really commit to the idea of her befriending everyone in class, then it means we will always be introducing new characters. And so, like, regardless of whether I thought Hitoribocchi, like, the joke would get old with her, the fact that there will be other characters who have their own gimmicks, like, blonde-haired girl is just kind of a straight man, so it wasn't that exciting getting to know her, but introducing the vice president girl was like, okay,
and the class
this is a new,
really
fun character.
Like, when you meet the class and, like, the first couple of students that are introduced, they have, like, distinctive character designs. Yeah. They seem to have a personality. There's a girl with a freaking tiara.
I want to know more about Tiara
Girl. Class.
The foreigner as well. There's a lot of characters who could be fun. So, yeah. I would say that this is going to go on the finish or fail pile. Oh boy, we have been sitting here, and in the time it took me to finish my meal, we managed to drop. What was the first one?
Not one, not two, but 3 Trashime.
Trashime in the time it took me to eat. We had Hachigatsu no Cinderella 9, which is a baseball girls anime. The character designs look really bad. Like, not necessarily on paper, but like in action. They look terrible. And it was really slow and boring. None of the characters seemed to have any personality.
Is Cinderella 9 like the name of something else?
Princess 9 is a baseball anime as well. I think there's Cinderella Girls.
Yeah, I just, maybe the wires got crossed in my mind.
So, that one was mega boring. It was just like, it just felt like it was in the it was establishing things that didn't need to be established for like a long period of time. You know what I mean?
Indeed.
Then we got to Bakumatsu Crisis, which is, if you made an assumption based on the title about what the show would be, it's that. It's a Bakumatsu era Fujobait garbage from Studio Dean. We watched like 5 minutes, and it didn't really. It was just kind of all over the place, really.
It was really all over the place.
It started off kind of interesting.
Really weird directing.
It started off kind of interesting because it started with the main characters, like, seemingly at the end of a story talking about, like, going back in time. And so I thought they were about to literally go back in time, but then, like, they just kind of walk into this city and they're like, oh, everything's different from how it... Maybe this is a sequel. Maybe we didn't even realize it. Because it said... It is a sequel. That's why we were so confused.
Oh.
It's not called Bakumatsu... I mean, Crisis is the subtitle. It's Bakumatsu 2. I just thought... I mean, it's surprising to me that there's an anime just called Bakumatsu, since that's just the name of the time period. Well, that makes a lot more sense then. I just found this out on the screen over there. And then we switched from that to Namu Amida Butsu Rendai Utena, which is...
slightly more competent, but not as good.
It was, like, it started off with an action scene introducing 2 over-designed pretty boys fighting a monster, and, like, the direction was competent. So I was like, alright, that's cool. And then it goes right into, like, a long exposition scene, and I was just like, oh, I obviously don't care about this. Like, this is just another... It's just a bunch of Fujobait. And I don't know how... I want to know... I mean, I guess in the case of Bakumatsu, that's a season 2. So clearly season 1 was successful enough. Mm-hmm. How does this happen? Like, is it just that Fujos will watch anything as long as it has pretty boys?
I mean,
like,
otaku will watch anything with cute girls.
I guess
so
they will.
There's less anime oriented towards women, so... If your life is about watching anime and being a Fujo, you're gonna fucking watch this.
I was saying earlier, before we started recording, that, like, it's almost similar to, like, the pink tax or whatever, where it's, like, women are often marketed just shittier products that cost more, and I feel like this is the anime equivalent of that, like, not to say that there's nothing that's marketed towards women that's good, but, like, when it comes to Fujobait, it is so slapped together. It is always just the same shit. It's always the most, like, unwatchable garbage that just has a huge cast of pretty boys and, you know, all these, like, actors who are popular with Fujos. And it's like...
It's the same in the West.
It's like, amazing to me that it works.
Fucking Twilight and shit.
Yeah, and, you know, those films look like they're fucking TV movies, you know? It's...
Oh, yeah, worse than TV movies.
I just want to know, is it that women are so starved for something like this that they'll just take what they can get?
I don't think it's all women. I think it's the hardcore Fujos, and there's just, you know...
Are the Fujos that starved for, like, because...
I don't know, they probably get something out of watching it.
Right? I guess so.
They get something out of
I hope
propping
so.
up shows like this,
like,
of making like fan work of shows like this.
There are legitimately great anime that have Fujo audiences where, like, if you look at something like Psycho Pass or like I had another one in mind, Durarara. Like, these are shows that are not made for Fujos, but they have attractive male characters, and that fan base kind of latches onto it, and, like, I mean, I guess you could say that the same thing is true for guys. There's plenty of dumb shit moe shows that get popular.
Yeah, definitely.
It just feels like Fujos get the worst. Like, they get the worst stuff, man. Like, every season a bunch of Fujobait stuff comes out, and it's always
it
the worst shit.
Mass appeal. Like, there is a very small group of people who are watching these shows, so they don't have any reason to put more effort into making them or more of a budget into making them.
You say that, but the Fujo bucks are like some of the most powerful bucks that there are, you know?
I think it has to do with, like, just the behaviors of each demographic. Like, if you are a male otaku, there's probably, like, a ton of different options you have to throw your money at. If you're a woman and you're, like,
that's
really
what I'm saying. Is it just desperation? Shit. Like Kingdom is a good example of a show that's actually, like, a good story.
Yeah, and you get
hooked
onto that and you want more.
And then you just consume everything that's like it. And it's always, like, Bakumatsu shit. Like, why are Fujos so interested in the Bakumatsu era?
This is the second season by Dean. Maybe they just, like, didn't even try. They just, like, knew there were people who wanted a second season. Yeah. Because, like, the other show we watched was of a higher quality.
And this is after Dean had already made Bakumatsu Rock, which was, that one was at least fun. That was, like, pretty boys in the Bakumatsu era, but they were idols, and the whole conceit of it was fucking ridiculous. But, like, I don't know. If anybody knows more about Fujo buying habits, I would love to know some market research. Like, why are they so terrible every time? Or am I just, like, blinded because like, I mean, I skip out on lots and lots of shitty moe anime every season, but a lot of the moe stuff that I watch and consider good, a lot of other people's, you know, would pass on and would say that I only like it because it has cute girls. But I feel like there's a lot of defensible, like, filmic traits to the types of shows that I do end up watching that I don't find in any of this Fujobait stuff, you know? Like, not one of them is, like, well made.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably, like, they probably have their own directors and probably have their own people that they're working with that don't really branch out into other types of shows.
Could be.
So maybe they're just, like, people who really like this stuff are just looking for different things.
Yeah. Again, I want some
doesn't
fucking research.
Make it not trash.
I want some written some academic articles about this.
Oh boy.
Anyway.
You might have to go back to college to provide this information.
No! Alright. That's probably it for this episode, right? Because this is the third clip. We did Hitoribocchi, Fairy Gone.
We did 5 shows.
And yeah, all 3 of these. Alright. See you in the next one.